Authors who write series, fantasy, and all of that, what is the essence of some of the kind of cliffhangers you guys write in your books? Why is there tension and conflict in the 90th percent of your 480-page book? And then that conflict ends up not being resolved. In fact, I think I'm jumping ahead of myself in this review or in this rant, but let's talk about this. So, we honestly need to have a honest conversation about the way some authors write cliffhangers in their books. Now, I had this experience where I read a book in a series. The book is titled Filthy Rich Fae. Filthy Rich Fae, yes, by Geneva Lee. And I read the first book last year, November last year. And the reason I did not read the second book, which I finished in July 2026, is because of the irritating cliffhanger at the end of the first book. I understand that there's a need to, keep your reader engaged, keep them interested and invested in your book. You want them to continue to long for the story, to know how it's going to end and all. But then it gets to a point. It gets to a point where the cliffhanger begins to look like a marketing gimmick, where it begins to look like as if you don't care about how your readers feel, or that you've deliberately constructed the cliffhanger in a way to torment your readers. We laugh, we joke about when readers say, "Oh, I was emotionally wrecked after reading this book. Oh, my heart was broken after reading this book," and all of that. But then these things actually happen. And these things are being done deliberately by some authors. So I ended up reading book two of the Filthy Fae series. I finished it and I was left feeling discombobulated because I remember that I had promised myself that, hey, I've read book one, I felt irritated to the core. I'm not going to read this series again. But guess what? I read book two. So I started reading book two. That was around June 28th, 29th, 2026. And I was reading it. The opening was really nice. This is a story about a fae um, king, sort of, and his fated mate, right? But we get to that later on. So what happens is there's this interesting opening. Then we figure out, oh, this is actually what happened at the end of book one. We understand why the FMC has been taken to where she has been taken. We understand that, oh, this is the situation she's in. Eventually, excuse me, eventually she's rescued from the place that she has been imprisoned in. And after the rescue, the next thing is that, she is back to the love of her life. And you're like, yay, awesome. Okay, let's enjoy this love story. Then suddenly we start seeing a murder mystery. From where to where, you may ask? I still don't know. Then the murder mystery starts happening. Then, there's like a serial murder in town, and different conflicts start rising and all. Okay, it seems like there's some form of resolution. Then we keep going. By this time, you are like, okay, where is this story going? By the time you realize the story is already like 90% in. And you know what will happen that 90%? There's no resolution of conflict happening. In fact, more conflicts begin to arise out of the blue. You begin to see that, oh, this character that we trusted and all of that, oh, was a betrayer. Different people betraying, and just betrayal, conflict in the 90% time of this book, like at the 90% percentile of this book. This is a 447-page book, and you're telling me that it's in 90% that new conflict begin to rise. When you study literature, if you're a student of literature, you know, yes, there will be exposition, then there will be conflict, and then there must be a resolution of conflict. There must be a denouement. Denouement is non-existent in this book. How do you, like, I feel that the quality of a good cliffhanger is when it comes even after resolving conflict. You can't build up, you can't resolve the conflict of book 1, right, in book 2, and then there are several conflicts that keep rising in book 2, and we get to the end and there's literally no freaking resolution. None. Even the moment where you feel like, oh, okay, there's an answer to, oh, the murder mystery and all of that, you're still shown that, hey, no, that's not happening. The rug is literally pulled off your feet, and it's like, oh, this story is going to, be convoluted all over again. Like, even as I am explaining it right now, I'm having a serious headache. I did not like that book. I didn't like the book. I've promised myself I will read book 3. That's if I still have interest in it in another year's time. Definitely, I'm not putting myself through that torture in this year again. And when I posted about this on my Instagram page, some people were talking about how apparently the book has 4 books out already. The 5th book is not yet out. And obviously, it means that it just means that the 4th book probably also ended in a cliffhanger. I am saying all of this to say that if you're an author out there, you love writing cliffhangers, make sure that your cliffhangers make sense. Make sure that there's some form of resolution. Allow your reader to imagine and create worlds out of what you present to them in terms of the cliffhanger. A good example is, when I read Cursed Daughters, right? This is a novel that ends. It's like one book. It ends, but at the same time, you are allowed to imagine what the characters could go through, what the characters could, experience in the future, what the characters could um build. And you are able to do this out of the information that you receive from the author. This is not the same when it comes to this book. I forgot, Filthy Rich Fae by Geneva Lee. Like, I do not like that book at all. And the writer, I'm not sure I'll be reading books by that writer. Like, for sure, I had so I think this was 2 years ago. I bought Filthy Rich Vampire. That was actually the very first book of that author that I bought. So, and I was like excited to read it. I took a break on it when I saw Filthy Rich Fae. And so I started reading Filthy Rich Fae, and this has been an uncomfortable experience, a deeply frustrating experience, and I feel that authors should stop writing these kind of annoying cliffhangers. But if you're an author who is intent on causing frustration for your readers, making your readers feel discombobulated, making your readers feel frustrated, please continue. Go ahead, continue writing that kind of story and continue putting cliffhangers after writing up a bunch of conflicts that are not resolved. Thank you.